All right. So today we're going to read a book called Jackson Pollock Splashed Paint and Wasn't Sorry. It's written by Fausto Gilberti and is published by Phaidon Books. Once we get done reading, we will look at some of the artwork that Jackson Pollock produced, and we will talk about some of the techniques he used, and then a project that hopefully you guys can do from home. And we will talk about splashing paint and having fun making art while making a mess, but we'll do it in a hopefully kind of clean way so that we don't have a bunch of angry parents. So, here we go. It starts by talking about Jackson Pollock a little bit. It says, Jackson Pollock was unlike any other painter. When he painted, he moved. He dripped, splashed, and poured paint over canvases that were rolled out across the floor. And he wasn't sorry. This is an inspiring story about one of the most important contemporary artists who ever lived. These shoes belong to Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock was a painter. He was born in the Wild West of the United States more than 100 years ago. After growing up surrounded by nature, he moved to New York City to study art. Jackson was 18. It was in this great city that Jackson met Lee and Peggy. Lee was a fellow artist who later became Jackson's wife. Peggy was an important lady who collected Jackson's paintings, exhibited them at her gallery, and helped him sell them too. After a few years in the city, Jackson and Lee moved to a farm in the countryside. There, Jackson found the peace and inspiration he needed to experiment with a new way of painting. Jackson didn't like standing in front of an easel with a brush and palette. When he painted, he moved. He would paint and move and move and paint. How did he do that? Did he paint while turning somersaults? Or while running across the canvas? Maybe he painted while riding a bike with his brush in hand. Or while dancing the boogie woogie. Could he have painted while climbing the Rocky Mountains? Or gliding through the air on a parachute? What about painting while swimming in a river? Well, he didn't quite paint in those ways, though he probably would have enjoyed trying. Jackson actually painted by walking around a huge canvas that was spread out on the floor. Sometimes he painted in drips. Sometimes he painted by whirling his arms around. He splashed paint using brushes, sticks, and spoons, or poured it straight out of a can. Jackson was careful with his drips and splashes, making sure the paint landed exactly where he wanted. He painted with the energy and grace of a dancer. He painted with rhythm and order, concentrating on every movement until the very last drop of paint fell on the canvas. "It's finished!" Jackson was unlike any other painter. He did things his own way with drips, splashes, and movement, and he wasn't sorry. Some people did not like his paintings. Others did not understand them. But Jackson couldn't paint in any other way. When he painted, his heart would beat like a drum, and he could not stay still. People soon began to understand his work, and some have even tried painting the same way that he did. His artworks became famous, and now they hang in museums around the world. Jackson, you did it! All right, here's a little bit more about Jackson Pollock. He's one of the most famous American painters of all time. He was born in 1912 in Wyoming and grew up in Arizona and California. He was the youngest of 5 children and lived on a farm for much of his childhood. When he was 18, Pollock moved to New York City to train as an artist. There, he met his future wife, Lee Krasner, who was also an artist. He also met Peggy Guggenheim, a very rich art collector, who asked him to paint her a mural. Pollock was so excited that he took down a wall in his house to bring a 20-foot mural inside to paint. Peggy loved his mural and invited him to have an exhibition at her gallery. Pollock soon became famous for his drip art and for his action painting. His paintings looked messy and unplanned, but he took great care over where the paint would fall and what colors he would use. He was called an abstract expressionist artist, which means his paintings didn't look like anything certain, but instead represented his feelings in the expressive marks he made. Pollock died in 1956, but his work continues to inspire many artists to experiment and invent new ways of painting. All right, this painting by Jackson Pollock is called Number 1A, and it's from 1948. It was painted with oil paints and enamel on a canvas that was 68 inches tall by 104 inches wide. It can be seen in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City.